Can you imagine seeing the 7 times world champion completely lost in the middle of the platoon, without podiums, without trust, and even doubting their own decision to have changed equipment? Well, that is exactly what Lewis Hamilton is living in Ferrari this 2025. And the question is inevitable. Was the champion wrong when dressing red? The signing of Lewis Hamilton by Ferrari marked a before and after in the recent history of Formula One. It was not just a team change, it was a symbolic act. The heptacampion left Mercedes, the team with which the records of records had rewritten for a decade, to embark on a mission that many considered impossible, to return Ferrari to the top of world motor racing. From the announcement, a wave of huge expectation was generated. The press sold it as the perfect alliance between Hamilton's supreme experience and Maranello's resurgent structure. Even within the paddock, rivals like Toto Wolff and Christian Horner recognized that this movement could shake the board of the championship. The vision was clear: to unite Ferrari's technical capacity with Lewis's insatiable hunger for an 8th title. Instead of starring in the fight for the title, it is in the 6th position of the championship, with only 79 points. But the most painful is not the distance with the leader, Oscar Piastri, which already amounts to 119 points. The really alarming thing is that your own teammate, Charles Leclerc, takes 25 units of difference. That internal difference in the Ferrari team has aroused murmurs in the paddock. Is Hamilton receiving the same level of support and resources as Leclerc? Has the technical environment really adapted to your specific needs? In each race, the results seem to get away more and more than promised. And although in interviews Hamilton maintains a serene facade, with phrases like, "We are not fighting for a championship at this time," frustration is palpable. It is not just about statistics or points, it is the internal feeling of impotence, a feeling that time progresses and performance does not arrive. For a pilot who built his legacy based on absolute control and total trust in his machinery, this new reality represents a brutal blow. The Scuderia did not hire Hamilton to add points in the middle of the platoon. He brought it to win, to inspire, to return the fear of rivals and glory to their history. But now, 10 days later, that narrative is in ruins. And the most disturbing thing is that there is no clear solution on the horizon. Each Grand Prix seems more a sentence than an opportunity. And every return that Hamilton gives without options to fight for the top brings him a little closer to the question that many are already asked in silence. Was the champion wrong? Lewis Hamilton's disappointment is not only understood from statistics. You have to look under the SF25 body to understand the magnitude of the problem. Because it is not that Hamilton is paying badly for himself, he is trying to tame a car with which he has not managed to establish any type of connection. The SF25, in theory a promising evolution of the previous model, has proven to be a machine of extremes. It can shine at certain times with Leclerc at the wheel, but becomes a real nightmare when Hamilton conducts it. And that has generated an abyss of trust between pilot and car that, at this point in the season, is still not closed. One of the most critical conflict spotlights has been the brake system. In Formula One, where every thousandth having confidence at the time of braking is vital. And that trust has completely disappeared for Hamilton. The British has described the SF25 braking system as a lottery. Literally. In his own words, every time he changes brake game is like launching the dice. Sometimes it works and sometimes not. This inconsistency not only compromises its return times, but has deeply affected its piloting style. Lewis has always been known for his aggressiveness when braking late and strongly, an art that dominated with a mastery in Mercedes thanks to the carbon industry brake system. But Ferrari uses the Brembo, which respond differently, and the result has been a disaster. Technical analyses reveal that Hamilton tends to apply a braking pressure superior to that of Leclerc in rapid curves. This greater pressure causes small disturbances that translate into erratic movements of the steering wheel. And that completely alters the behavior of the car in full passage by curve. The SF25 does not tolerate those margins. The margin of error is minimal. But brakes are not the only problem. The rear suspension of the SF25 is based on a pull rod system, which although theoretically improves aerodynamic efficiency, has turned out to be excessively rigid. That rigidity drastically limits the operating window of the car. That is, the SF25 only works well in extremely specific conditions. Outside that range becomes unpredictable and unstable. This limitation was dramatically exposed in the China Grand Prix, where Hamilton was disqualified by excessive wear of the flat background. The root of the problem was at the march of the car, which could not be adjusted correctly due to the lack of flexibility in the suspension. The car literally touched the ground more than the account, something unacceptable by regulation, but also speaks of a serious design failure. In terms of balance, Ferrari engineers have admitted that there is a structural problem between the two sides of the garage. Hamilton has publicly declared that his car suffers from a deficit in a fundamental component, although he has not detailed which. This suggests that not even within Ferrari it has been possible to completely identify or correct the origin of the malfunction. Meanwhile, telemetry data shows that Leclerc's car does get into faster temperature, responds better in traction, and has superior stability on the rear axle, something that Hamilton has not been able to replicate. The most worrying thing is that, despite the investment, human effort, and time dedicated in simulators, the SF25 is still not a tool that Lewis can use in its favor. It is as if every time he gets into the car he was fighting a rebel entity, oblivious to his control. And in a category such as Formula One, where the understanding between pilot and machine must be absolute, that disconnection is deadly. What should have been a weapon to attack the World Championship has become an unsolved enigma. And as long as they do not find a solution, Hamilton will not only remain far from the podium, he will continue to be trapped in a dynamic that mines his trust, his motivation, and possibly his legacy. Tensions began to climb when information was leaked that shook the foundations of the team. Hamilton would have requested a change in the brake provider. This request was not a simple technical comment. It represented a direct statement of discontent towards one of the fundamental components of the car. The fact that this information came to the press did nothing more than worse. Internally, it caused a clash between Ferrari's technical departments, generating an environment of discomfort that was felt even in the garage. For a team that has historically fought with internal cohesion problems and conflicts of power, the presence of a figure as influential and demanding as Hamilton has been a catalyst for both progress and tension. But what is at stake goes beyond track performance. The emotional relationship between pilot and team, an essential component in any successful Formula One project, is cracking. Hamilton has suggested in several interviews that feels that there is an element inside the car that is not working on its side of the garage. This statement, beyond the technical, implies a direct questioning to the internal balance of the team. And when a pilot of his caliber begins to point out differences in treatment or communication problems, the environment is rapidly contaminated. In addition, the specialized press has begun to collect rumors of increasing discontent in both parties. Some reports suggest that Ferrari is frustrated by the lack of adaptation of Hamilton, while others indicate that the British feels disappointed by breeding promises on the development of the car and technical integration. This crossing of perceptions only feeds the narrative of a disagreement that could climb if the results do not improve soon. And all this occurs under the constant pressure of the media, sponsors, and fans. Ferrari is a team that not only competes to win, but lives under the permanent scrutiny of millions of followers. And Hamilton, a global figure with a legacy to defend, cannot afford gray seasons. Each grand prize without progress is another step towards rupture. Because if the SF25 does not change, if the team does not find technical solutions, or if the internal relationship continues to deteriorate, the scenario of an early way out, more unlikely that today seems contractually, will no longer be a simple speculation and will begin to be outlined as a possible outcome. At this time, rather than talking about a complicated season, you start talking about a relationship that could be marking its last laps. Lewis Hamilton's performance drop cannot be analyzed in a vacuum. To understand the depth of the problem, you have to observe the general context of the 2025 season of Formula One. Because while the seven-time champion fights with an indomitable car and a team that has failed to adapt to their needs, the rest of the grill has not been still. On the contrary, a new competitive dynamic has been intensified that only aggravates its situation and puts even more pressure on its figure. All this leaves Ferrari in a position of strategic vulnerability. Tactical errors have been repetitive. In Melbourne, for example, they left their pilots on the track too long when the rain was already imminent, ruining any possibility of capitalizing positions won at the exit. In Shanghai, late decisions in boxes and a bad reading of where once again committed both cars. And beyond the technical, there is an obvious lack of clear direction. The Scuderia seems to move slowly, reacting instead of anticipating, while the other teams make proactive decisions that keep them in the fight for both championships. And now that you know in depth everything that is happening within Ferrari's garage, everything Hamilton is facing this critical stage of his career, and how the context of the current Formula One has exacerbated each of his problems, the question becomes inevitable. Are we really witnessing the beginning of the twilight of a legend? Or is this just another dramatic chapter before a great resurrection, as we have seen in the history of sport? We want to know your vision. Do you think Ferrari still has a margin to redirect this project and offer Hamilton the necessary tools to compete? Or do you think the error was already committed and now it only remains to minimize damage? So we invite you to leave your analysis in the comments.